Hello everyone, welcome back to Spar&Brawl. Hope you're having a decent day. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Sam, and this is going to be episode 2 of the progressive world, where we talk about everything and anything that's kind of related to the progressive world, especially the things that you see on YouTube. So we have a bunch of little episodes, I guess, mini episodes for today's big episode of progressive world. And I mean, one of them is about Norman Finkelstein and the way he was blacklisted by academia. Just like some details I hadn't heard before, which are just fascinating. We'll get into. I saw this great video about inflation on the Analysis News, a debate about Afghanistan on the Analysis News. So we'll get into all of that. And also the progressive voice. So who his subscribers seem to like and not like. I found that to be surprising. But yeah, Sam, should we get right into it? I was going to start with Destiny.
Sure, yeah, let's go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Okay,
yeah.
so
But,
last week we made a video where I just stumbled upon Destiny for the first time and watched his debate with Richard Wolff. And my main takeaway was that why the hell is Destiny so rude? So I'm not going to talk about that again. And a bunch of people comment. Yeah, go ahead.
I like add a caveat. I did watch the whole thing. I didn't watch it last week. I would say I do understand it can get frustrating when somebody's talking and talking and talking for a long time, and you're in a debate and you're like trying to get a point. I mean, I think he was rude, and I think he was not in the right in any of the arguments. But I can understand why sometimes people get frustrated if somebody talks a lot,
Yeah,
because I
fair
do talk
enough.
a lot.
No, and that was
Yeah.
some of the people were saying that. So some of the people who didn't agree with Destiny in our comment section, they were like, but come on, you have to admit that Richard Wolff was just lecturing a bit too much. Um,
Yeah, I think
So
there was.
sure, but let's put that aside for a second. So I watched another debate that Destiny's had for this week, and this one was with Michael Brooks, and I was like shocked. So he wasn't rude whatsoever to Michael Brooks in this one. He let Michael. So many people commented that this was like an episode of the Michael Brooks show because it was just Michael Brooks talking, and Destiny would like be taking notes the whole time. I mean, you think he was in some kind of chat. He was like taking notes, and then like 1 second, like Michael Brooks stopped, and Destiny's like, wait 1 second, let me finish this. But then he would talk again for like a second, like he would just speak and say a few things. But I was surprised with the approach. Now his approach has changed, so maybe people can tell us because of how badly he thinks he lost. Maybe in the Michael Brooks show, he thinks with the Michael Brooks debate, he thinks he has to assert himself more. But one thing I realized, and this is kind of my main take, is that Destiny's politics are far from being horrible. Like he's like pretty much a bit on the. Sorry, did you say
He's a
something? I
Joe
didn't hear
Biden.
you.
No, no, I was just saying he's a Joe Biden sort of
He's even a bit
Democrat.
left to the Joe Biden, if anything. Like he made it seem like he definitely thought, with Michael Brooks at least, that there was something wrong with the healthcare system, for instance, and something more towards a universal, public, free for all would definitely be the good option. Although he said, some things I would agree that, like we throw around these polls about Medicare saying like X% of people agree, maybe it's not the case. But whatever. And this debate was supposed to be just about the Trans-Pacific Partnership. Remember the TPP? So
Ah, yeah.
such a like now it seems like such a weird thing to just have debate on something a bit small and one issue. Although back then it was a big thing when when Trump killed it and everything. But yeah, his politics are not bad at all. But the way that he opposes like progressive and like more progressive than him or more leftist views. He is like so ferocious in the way that he opposes them. You would think that he's like a full out libertarian and like, or like some kind of really right wing person. But like,
One,
if,
one,
sorry?
one of the commentators wrote that he's been described as a Ben Shapiro of liberals or something.
Yeah,
So maybe yeah, that's the thing. Maybe
that's the
he's just,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
his style is very,
So it's just
yeah.
his exactly it's his style and stuff. You think like, oh my god, the way he's opposing it, like he's for sure, pro slavery. Like, if you ask him, just like the level with which, he would like oppose anything that has to do with like socialism or progressive. So just interesting, and I wonder if the viewers can tell us a little bit more if the way he talks and like his approach has changed. And another viewer wrote that he's kind of like a pro debater now. Like that's what he does. He goes around debating. And maybe it's unfair. Maybe he doesn't categorize himself as just a debater. Maybe he thinks he debates in politics and stuff. But isn't that weird to just be like like I know as a kid in high school you do like debate things where it's just about the skills and improving your debate skills, but just debating about everything and anything makes kind of no sense. I mean, maybe you'll be into debating in a specific issue or topic, but if you're just debating about anything, that means you're just using your debate techniques and tactics to hopefully win a debate, but you're not adding anything content wise. Because there's no way you know about everything to just go around debating. I'm not saying that's what he does, but just being like a debate kind of person makes little sense to me.
I mean, that's a whole. I mean, fine. I mean, if you want to take a very negative view, I guess it's a whole market for it. There's a whole market for it. So
Yeah, but you
that
need
makes
like yeah,
well,
yeah, it's just
and I do think, to be fair, he does probably focus on gaming and politics. So
yeah,
like he focuses on the things he knows. But if you look at if you look at gaming or movies or basic critics, a lot of times do debates, movie critics or something. So I think, yeah, debating is very popular with the people. So I can see a lot of people just wanting to do that
yeah,
for profit or for attracting a bigger audience or
yeah.
that type of thing.
No, fair enough. And I know very little of him. I mean, I've literally just watched these two videos of him and what people have written a bit in the comment section just to get to know. But yeah, that's my latest take on on Destiny.
Destiny.
Is that he's not the worst person at all when it comes to his politics. It's just the way he opposes progressives and leftists. And then
In that,
have you seen his debate with Burgess by any chance?
no, but I did that came to through my feed. So I think, yeah, because I watched the Richard Wolff one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I that's a newer one, right? That's happens after Richard Wolff.
No, no, with Ben Burgess. No, he has multiple apparently, and there's one where they play clips of it on
Yeah.
the Michael Brooks show before. I mean, before he passed away. So I think he's done a few debates. So maybe that's the next one I'll watch.
All right. Yeah,
What
that
happens
would
to
be.
you? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. To be fair, we should probably, if we want to deep dive on Destiny or whatever, we should read his blog or whatever, or I'm
Yeah.
sure he writes his opinion Twitter account or something.
Yeah, just a little bit more without poisoning ourselves. But okay, that's all I got on Destiny. Do you want to move on to
Hey,
Progressive Voice?
sure, sure. That's one I found.
So
I
that
have a
was
take on.
interesting, right? So the
Yeah.
Progressive Voice, I've seen maybe a few videos of him, so I don't really watch him that much or his audience. Do you know
I
a bit more about him? Do you watch him sometimes?
I watched him a lot back in the days because he's really good at covering. I think it's a great channel. First of all, I have to congratulate him for he started when I think he was very, very young and he kept
Hmm.
at it and it got better and better and better and better. And he had Kyle Kalinske to interview. He has had Jimmy Dore to interview. A lot of people. But he basically largely covers what we are covering right now, progressive sort of infightings or progressive up development in the progressive politics world on Twitter and stuff. He covers them on YouTube. And he, from what the thing is, well, first I think you should tell people about the poll, and then I'll tell you about what I think of his audience because it's a very general take. It's not a deep dive or anything.
Sure. Yeah, so basically
Yeah,
what caught my eye, so I'll put this little poll. He did one of these YouTube polls. I'll put it on screen. So here's the question. He said if you had to stop watching one of these shows for the rest of your life, which one would you choose? So at first I was like, am I understand the question properly? Once I was
yeah, it's a bit.
assured that I was shocked. So his audience does not seem to like Jimmy Dore whatsoever. So almost 60% of them said they would stop watching Jimmy Dore. And yeah, the closest one after that was Young Turks. I was a bit shocked given that, you know, Jimmy Dore's popularity right now. I thought among all progressives on YouTube, I guess, I was a bit off there. So I just found it. I was shocked, and I just found it interesting. I was like, okay, there seems to be a huge anti Jimmy Dore camp against somewhere, because he also has a decent amount of subscribers. You know, he has like 70,000 progressive voice. So his channel isn't tiny. And then we can also talk a little bit about YouTube polls as well. So we'll leave that for a second. But yeah, did you
Sure,
find it as surprising as I did?
no, not really, because I think Jimmy Dore has his own sort of base that it's kind of like a Trump, not in any of the policy sense, but Trump of the sort of progressive leftist people, that he has a fan base that really like him, including myself, by the way.
Yeah.
And for example, one of the reasons I never subscribed to Progressive Voice was that because Progressive Voice is more, yeah, he has criticized Jimmy Dore extensively. And I'm not surprised if a lot of people who were like me were thinking of subscribing to Progressive Voice, or were Jimmy Dore subscribers unsubscribing, because Jimmy Dore fans, I think, are somewhat more, you know, active, at least. I don't know, like they are more like, they get more offended if somebody, hits against him than, let's say, Cenk Uygur, who has, because they have a bigger following as well. So it's not just a small group of devotees. So I wasn't as surprised, but and I would, yeah, I am very sad that Majority Report came from like Majority Report. Basically, only secular talk
Yeah.
was the lowest, and then you had Majority Report at 7%, which was a big disappointment to me, because that to me is the worst.
Right?
I hate them most. Yeah, I think
For
they're the
sure.
worst. I think
No.
they're not really progressives. They're lit. They remind me of those like movie phony New York. I've never been to New York. Phony people that you see in New York or London in movies that are,
Yeah.
they like to discuss politics in their balconies and sit
But I wonder
on
if they were
TV.
better before with Michael Brooks, because, and I only discovered Michael Brooks last year. So, but
I
Michael
never.
Brooks for me was totally different than Sam Sater and what Sam Sater was saying. And I mean, Sam Sater, I've seen him 3 times and disagreed and opposed so much with what he was saying and the way he was
Every
talking that
time.
I've never watched him again. But Michael Brooks, I watched him quite a bit. I definitely didn't get the same vibe from him, and also like the
I
things that
never.
he was saying.
I mean, he's passed away, and he was a great journalist, I think, or a commentator. But yeah, I was never a fan. No, I never liked
Okay.
him either. Too wishy-washy liberally for me. Just in talking about, like communal movements in South America. Well, I don't know. I just find these type of things a bit, and
But
it's
different
good
than
to
Sam Sater. But different than Sam
more
Sater. Sam
different.
Sater doesn't talk about that kind of stuff.
No, no, not
Yeah.
as much. No, Michael Brooks was far more
Yeah.
international, I would say,
Oh,
respected and all.
100%. Yeah, but you're right.
But uh,
The majority
but just
report
gen
part is very disappointing in this poll. And David Pacman, I'm not sure who that is. I know he's very
I
famous and
know.
popular.
Yeah, he's like kind of like secular talky, but
Yeah.
more wishy-washy. He came on Joe Rogan. David Pacman is a just I don't know. He's one of those. I shouldn't talk ill of other people, but it's just sometimes he seems too nice. He gives a very. He could work on MS. Like his takes are great, by the way. He's a lefty and progressive and all that, but he could work on MSNBC. I think he's very polite and clean and ironed and everything.
Okay, I see. All right. I really
I,
don't.
I'm. I
Y-
just would like to clarify.
yeah, I really don't know him. But man, let's talk about these polls for a second. These YouTube polls are a sweet way of getting a good insight into especially the hardcore base of your audience, like who they like and what you don't like. I mean, there are other ways for sure, but this is great. So he got a good 12,000 votes here.
By the way,
12,000 people voted.
like on our channel, can we use them yet? Because I think we
No,
need to
you need
reach a.
to, yeah, you need to reach, I think, the the 1,000 subscriber base that unlocks the whole community feed.
All right,
Yeah.
so So it's really your fault, the viewers. That's why we can.
Exactly.
Yeah,
And then we can run a
yeah,
poll: who's better, you or me?
yeah, exactly. Just if you guys, there's an option you can share. Is there an option of send all on WhatsApp? I think they yeah, there is no option like that. So we
No,
need
I
to
don't
get
think.
1,000 viewers to be able to run this type of thing.
Yeah, but I mean, that's it. That's really my take. I mean, I just found it interesting because I don't know him that well. I was just like, okay, I don't know his audience that well. Sorry, Progressive Voice. So I was a bit surprised that there was such a big group of people who don't like Jimmy Dore. But I guess when you think about it more deeply, it does make sense. And and my second take, I guess these polls are kind of sweet for getting a nice little insight into your hardcore audience.
Yeah, I agree. It's for yeah because and the kind of it's the participants are clear in their like background and all that. So you're not getting a very you don't get a lot of data, but the data you're getting is quite a good one, I think.
Yeah, no, for sure, on your own subscribers. But okay, yeah. So that's all for this one. Let's move on to the next story. So the YouTube channel Zero Books, they hosted what I found to be an extremely fascinating conversation about Barack Obama. So who they brought on was Daniel Bessner. He's a political science professor. He's quite a young one, I believe. He works at the University of Washington, and interestingly, he was apparently one of Bernie Sanders' foreign policy advisors. Although in this show, in the little bit of the show, they fully criticize and Bernie Sanders, and in fact, the other person who was there, Pascal, forgot his last name. He was good too. He was like, I didn't vote for Bernie because his socialism stopped at our borders, at the shores. So he said it in a very nice and good way. I kind of butchered it. But going back to Obama, super interesting conversation. So I think Daniel Bessner has pretty much, of course, did a in deep dive into Obama's latest book that came out last year. So he based on a lot of his analysis on that, but he's also gone back and looked at his speeches and everything a little bit. And he kept on saying that this was his main takeaway, that to understand Obama and his ideology and where he finds himself is that Obama saw himself and his success as proof that the US system is doing good and is and yeah, that the US system is progressing incrementally. If not, someone like him, I guess someone like him being a black person, could have never been president of the United States. Therefore, there is no need to, I guess, do anything more radical, more to the left, because the system is already producing the results that we want. It's progressing a little bit at a time, and he's proof of it. So that was really his kind of point that I found to be really interesting. And yeah, you should go back and watch. It was like a good hour. It was super interesting. And then of course they kind of talked about the other side of it, that he was groomed from the very beginning, given the university that he went to, the people that he talked about. They point out to this Adolf Reed essay from the 90s where he wrote about Obama, and there's a little extract of it on Wikipedia, and it's about Obama when he was I guess running for
Before,
Senate. Yeah, he was running for Senate, and he's like, he's the kind of black politician that they've made, that we're gonna see
they made
starting
a
now.
lab
Sorry.
that they've made in a lab.
Yeah, exactly, pretty much. But he's like, he's not connected to the community or all the movements in those ways that we want, and he's gonna end up being, just your normal neoliberal liberal kind of president. But yeah, super super interesting. And then the Pascal guy, he talks, he's like one of the biggest things that came out, the leaks from WikiLeaks about Hillary Clinton. The biggest one was about Obama and how he pretty much had a banker picking half of his administration and all that. So super interesting visiting Obama. And then yeah, I mean, I just kind of wanted to share the main takeaway that he had from his analysis, Daniel. But yeah, super must watch. So we'll put a link in in the comment section. But yeah, anything? Do you have anything to add on to that, Sam?
No, I didn't see that. I'm gonna definitely check it out now that you've said so. But I would you agree with Obama that because him or
No,
people like him, let's say, come on, no, or
no,
not at all. But I mean,
100%.
I, I would say, okay, he's right to an extent that there has been progress made compared to the time where, let's say there was segregation or Jim Crow or whatever. But I mean, the question is, has that progress been enough for enough people? So that's no,
Yeah, no,
of course,
precisely.
yeah. I mean, it's definitely a better time now compared to, let's say, 1980s for black men in America. I mean, not definitely, but
Yeah, no,
slightly
exactly
better.
too for
Yeah.
certain segments.
I mean, yes, certain segments, and if we don't take into the account the economic depression that causes all the other stuff, let's just talk about the middle class.
Mm.
In just maybe for yeah, it's slightly better in some ways. They're more accepted, let's say, as a manager or as a director of a company. But is that enough for it was it how what percentage of people does that cover
Yeah,
or basic? So, I mean, yeah, it's just, I mean, I don't know if that's what Obama thinks, definitely for sure. And to be fair, I do think it's giving Obama a bit, like, not too much benefit of the doubt. I don't think Obama thinks about these. I don't think he justifies these
W-
things, These people are criminals at a, grand scale. They know what they're doing. He
yeah,
knows, you don't make $80 million for a book, uh, for your writing. So he knows what like his money where it comes
yeah.
from. I don't think he like there's a great movie, by the way, Lucky Number 11, in which there's a rabbi who's also a head of a Jewish mob, and like the person asks him, how do you justify it that that you're a rabbi and you also are a head of a mob basically that kills people and all that, and does a lot of things that are not allowed in the Jewish faith, and he says, I don't justify. I'll go to hell for those actions. I'll go to hell for that and all that, and that's just another side of my life. So I don't think Obama is thinking around saying, all right, how can I justify me being working for the banks? He works for the banks, that's all.
Yeah, and I mean, based on what um, Daniel was saying, and if you just think about it and stuff, yeah, to him, he probably thinks he's doing good and he's doing good things, and these are the kind of ideologies that he sees and he agrees with the kind of liberal Democrat liberal class. I mean, yeah, he sees himself
Yeah,
right there and perfectly well, and yeah.
good.
But yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. But yeah, definitely a must watch. Of course, there's more to it than what I just said, and yeah, they revisit all the different kind of talking points about Obama. Super interesting. Now,
Actually, by the way, Adolf Reed had came on Katie
Katie
Halper's
Halper
recent.
show, yeah,
Check that out. Good,
yeah,
good. I love Adolf Reed. He's the
yeah.
coolest.
Okay, I
Yeah,
haven't listened to him too much actually before.
he's just so serious and all that. So it's like, it's like being in army, but like army for like social sciences. It's really cool. I don't know. I love him, but that's
No,
my
you're so
personal.
right. That's the impression I got from listening to him just a little bit. But
He's
okay,
serious. Yeah.
yeah. So the analysis news again, people just stop watching this channel, go watch analysis.
Yeah.
Give us a like and subscribe and then go watch analysis news. I mean, they put out two videos that I loved. One was the Afghanistan debate, which we'll get into, but the inflation one was even more interesting. So Paul J hosted a political economist by the name of he's called
Mark Blythe.
Mark Blight. So he's Scottish American.
Oh, sorry. By the way, I thought you knew about him before we.
I
Okay,
had
that's it.
seen him
He's
once or twice, but yeah, I
He
hadn't
has
seen
his
him
own
one.
YouTube channel. They
Oh,
talk
really?
about economy every week, and yeah, he's a very good economist. He's a very fantastic
Yeah,
Scottish economist. He's
and
very accent-wise. Yeah, get like you need to listen to him a bit to get a hang of it, but
for
he's
sure.
good.
And he teaches at Brown University, I believe. So this video was all about inflation, and he pretty much comes. He makes 3 points about inflation, really, that I found to be to be interesting. The first one is like he's like the general population, they don't really understand what inflation is. He says that oh, there's no such thing as like housing market inflation or like X product inflation. He says if there's inflation, that means the prices of everything pretty much go up and they continue to go up. If it's like just touching one aspect of the market, the housing or this or that product, then it's not inflation. Something
It's
else
so,
is
it
going on.
sometimes they do release the numbers for a specific sector, though. Or, for example, like in economy, you have this like thing they call it like the basket, the family basket or something that, and there are different ways of basically calculating. But you are right. Inflation, when they report inflation in the news, they're talking about average inflation of all things.
Hmm.
Like let's say gold to oranges. You take all that into account. Technically, you should.
Exactly. So he says that like, you can't say, oh, the Toronto housing market, is inflation there. He's like, no, he like points out like X and Y policy. He's like, yeah, house prices have gone up ridiculously in Toronto, but that's not inflation, right? That's the prices in this
Okay.
market going up. He says for it to be inflation, it needs to affect all areas of the economy and the market. If you're just seeing prices go up in one place, that's not inflation.
All right. I need to listen to this very carefully.
From what
But
but it's what you
all
said.
right. No,
It
no.
is like what you said.
I think you can also say that, for example, inflation in the housing market. If you
What?
just talk
Yeah,
about
he says
that,
that's not
right?
inflation. He says
Yeah,
like in
that's what I.
economics
Yeah,
that from what I understood, really like
yeah, yeah.
political and
I mean,
economy, this is as far as my understanding goes. So yeah,
and to be
maybe.
sure, I'm pretty sure he's probably more right than I am. But I
Mhm.
thought you could. All right, I thought you
I
could
mean,
segment
based
this.
on what I understood. So maybe others can also write in the comment section and let us know what you
Yeah.
think, and then maybe
He,
after you
I
watch the
mean,
video.
he's like him. He reminds me of somebody else that I can't remember right now. But he's so technical. Oh, Dylan Rattigan.
Really?
They're
You
so.
found no, he wasn't technical like that too much. Really? At
I
least on
find
this
them.
video.
Yeah, well, I sometimes find him to be so technical with his terms, and because it's economy and
Yeah.
markets and all that, sometimes I get confused.
But he
I, I,
said,
I
yeah.
yeah, he does a great back and forth with Naomi Klein, I think, and I listened to that and I got a bit confused, to be
Oh,
honest, because
interesting.
two major economists talking, and you're like, what? So
Well, he
yeah.
says that he's a leftist himself, but he whenever he's like doing his work and stuff, he tries not to let his views like, distort his work. So then the second point that he makes, which really leads to the third one, which is the main point why they make this video about inflation, he says that inflation is not really a threat in the US and pretty much in like the EU. So developed countries, his like inflation is really not a threat. So he gives the example of Turkey. He says this is why inflation is happening in Turkey and is a huge issue. And then and also what he was saying about inflation. If you take like the example of Iran or something, I think when there's inflation, it affects like a lot of areas, right? It's not in just like one sector, right? It affects like prices of all kinds of food and other
Well, that's the
equipment
thing,
and everything.
because I live in a country where inflation is so discussed, and usually it's such a part of our life. It's yeah, but usually first of all it hits everything, but it doesn't hit everything equally. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Like food prices, government tries to keep down,
Yeah,
for
no, of
example,
course.
while house prices or price of like precious metals tend to go out of control. The increase is not equal between the two. So, but I would agree definitely. So he said inflation is not a problem in like Western countries. That's what he was
More or
saying.
less, more or less. So here, let me
Yes,
complete
I
his
definitely,
argument. If you,
because
yeah.
inflation has been about 2% or something for the last 20. So it's been very, because you need a bit of inflation for growth anyway.
Mhm.
So otherwise you get into deflation. So that's,
And pretty much the reason why they had this whole conversation is because so there's been Biden's infrastructure spending and his COVID
yeah.
relief bill, and so he says that Larry Summers has come out and said that
Ah,
there's a 30% chance that there'll be inflation. He says, yeah, even 30% is no. He says maybe 10% chance, maybe max. So he doesn't deny that there's a possibility, of course, but he says that government spending has been so much less than inflation and everything in the
I
US and in developed countries that the chances of there being an inflation in the US are so slim. So that's pretty much the context behind the video.
I mean, yeah, it's an idiot. Larry Summers is an idiot. He's
Yeah.
been wrong about everything all his life. He's not a. I can't believe he's like. I don't know if he can call himself an economist. Then I don't know. Any person who has a laundrette is an economist as far as I'm
Yeah.
concerned. But no offense, like to people who own laundrette, every offense to Larry Summers. But so he's been wrong about everything. But that's the old bullshit argument of liberal neoliberals that if you
100%.
stimulate the economy, then people have money in their hands, so they'll go buy, and then people think people have money in their hands, so they'll push up the prices, blah 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 blah. Well, that may happen in certain scenarios, but right now people don't have enough. Like people don't have enough in the U.S. to live on, right? It's not an issue that they don't like. There is going to be a problem, like they're going to save the money and not spend it, or you know, it's an idiotic argument, I think, at this point.
Exactly.
And yeah, so
Yeah, exactly. And he keeps on saying like, show me the mechanisms, like point to me the mechanisms why there could possibly be inflation in the US or in EU countries even, he says. But yeah, I found this to be awesome. I love political economy like videos and stuff, although my understanding
political, like
is
British
good.
political
Yeah.
economy, because he's like American political economy is much more empiricist and positivist, but he comes
Hmm.
from the school that is much more about political economy. Like I
Yeah,
love
no,
that.
very
Yeah.
true.
Yes.
Okay, so the Analysis News had another debate, a kind of impromptu debate, because Lawrence Wilkerson, who used to work for the Bush administration, he was the chief of staff for Colin Powell, and then and Phyllis Bennis, who works in some kind of think tank. I would characterize her as a leftist when it comes to foreign policy. That's what she really talks about. And the reason I'm saying is impromptu because these two have been coming on the Analysis News or the Real News Network together forever, always on the same side, kinda. I would categorize both of their views, what you would associate with kind of leftist views of foreign policy, although Lawrence Wilkerson is, of course, a Republican. But, when you're talking a bit, if you were just going to stereotype it and generalize it, until this debate. So they're talking about the US withdrawal, and Phyllis Bennis is like, there is a chance that will most likely, she says, even get a little bit worse with the withdrawal. But I mean, these 20 years have done nothing to improve the situation. Really, really on the margins. She says, yes, that's true. There are like female politicians now, and the scientists there are more women. But she points out that only 25% of Afghanis live in big cities. The other 75% are all in little villages, spread across the country, and there it's much harder to see like progression for them over this time. But she says anyway, withdrawing the troops doesn't mean you forget about Afghanistan diplomacy and blah blah blah. But then Lawrence Wilkerson suddenly out of nowhere, he just starts saying like it was surprising. He's like, yeah, I don't think we should be withdrawing out of Afghanistan. And his arguments get more and more surprising because first he starts with a strategic argument. So he's like, it's not to the US benefit and strategy. And Paul J is like, well, it also depends who you're thinking about in the US, the population or like this part of the administration, but who. But sure. But then he kind of builds on that, saying like Afghanistan is different. We cannot leave Afghanistan. Things will get much, much worse. It is so hard to get into Afghanistan. We'll lose so much like power and position to China and all this. And then what kind of makes it worse, I found, was that then he really started reverting back into Bush administration. I feel like those kind of arguments that, we're going to make it better for the Afghanis by being them. I find like once he starts reaching that point, I mean, it's even not just a strategic discussion. So I pulled a little quote for him, and I want to see what you think of it. He wrote that he said that if you stay in Afghanistan long enough, the people will get their act together just for the simple reason that you're there as a chapeau for their doing that. And then he says, the our strategy militarily wasn't good enough, from the beginning. If we had a better military strategy, could have achieved more. But it was shocking. Phyllis Bennis was shocked. Paul J was shocked. I was shocked. All the viewers in the comment section were shocked. And in fact, it's one of our own viewers who told me about the video. Oh, Mario. So I'm sorry. Something their name is escaping me right now. I'll put his little comment here. So he told me to go check it out because he knows that we enjoyed the analysis news. But yeah, I guess my main takeaway is even that it was just shocking. That's my first one. And I'm like, was Lawrence Wilkerson faking his transition these past 10, 15 years? Did he kind of wake up on the wrong side of the bed? Why didn't he have this debate the last 500 times he's been on the real news with Phyllis Bennis or the analysis news?
He's not a lefty though. He's basically a sort of a nationalistic isolationist American. But I guess in case I was
Not
shocked to
isolate, not isolation, not I.
I
Whatever
would
that was.
say
Not with his comments that he was making today. I mean, this is the opposite. He wants more
no,
military
that
involvement in Afghanistan.
he wants, yeah, he's sort of wants a more strategic thinking rather than a just hit and run thinking, which was what happened like in Iraq, which was pretty much hit their oiler, get the oil and let's go back, guys. Yeah, yeah. And in a way, you could argue that, if you fuck up a country, you gotta stay to clean it up a little, at
Yeah, but
least
he
to stay.
wasn't talking about cleaning it up.
But no, he was though. He was saying that if you have a long-term strategy and all that, I would say okay. If you, but do you see that in the current or administration or any future administration of U.S.? Look at the Republicans right now. I don't see anybody who's up for doing something what Marshall, like what was Truman and the wise men, Dean Acheson and people they did after World War II, which was let's rebuild Europe and South Korea and Japan as future market for ourselves. Even though, by the way, they did it in a very brutal and dictatorial way. For example, in Korea, like by supporting basically dictators who were sympathetic to their cause. But they did also build infrastructure, build cities, blah, blah, blah. I don't think they are into that anymore. I don't think I mean, you might wish they are, and okay, let's wish American government wants to build a better Afghanistan. But the reality, it seems that since US troops have gotten their security issues have gotten worse, Taliban controls more of the opium trade, and sorry, because of lack of Taliban, there is more of opium trade, and you hear airstrikes from America killing civilians as well as Taliban killing civilians every day. So it's just to me, it seems like okay, nice dream you have, but I don't see it happening.
Yeah, no, I can't disagree with that. And I think this part you understood better than me. So he uses the South Korea example to kind of make his point. And I really don't know much, but when we're talking right now, you seem to know a
Well,
little bit more. Kind of Marshall Plan kind of thing they did in South Korea. Is that what he was getting into?
Well, South Korea, Japan, and Western Europe got a lot of help from US in terms they got financial assistance to develop their economies. That was the big one. Bigger than that was probably they were part of nations called the most favored nations. I think
Mm.
even Europeans were part of that. I think only Japan and Korea or something, which meant that they had tax-free access to US markets. They could sell their products. That's how Japanese industries became Japanese industries because they had a massive advantage in their access to American markets, basically. So yeah, I mean, there are empires, all empires sometimes go to build and, you know, you read about Romans, I think if I'm like Marx was in favor of British Empire over the Indian subcontinent. I think Christopher Hitchens defended the Roman conquest of Britain. So empires can be positive, can lead to positive developments as well, I think. But not all that. You have to go case by case basis. And I don't see any sudden change in in the Pentagon that no, now we have to focus for the security of the world. not just for like Afghani people or Afghanistani people. Nobody sadly cares about them. But for the security for our strategic interest, I don't see that. I just see a bunch of people who want to, trade opium and run guns. That's what seems to be the case.
Yeah, no, I don't think I disagree too much with your kind of good faith argument there about being an
Yeah,
empire. But
they're
yeah,
very like the current defense secretary of defense in the U.S. Was on the board of Lockheed Martin, or is
yeah,
one of those major like weapon manufacturers. So they're very brazen about it. It's not like
yeah.
they're hiding it or oh no no we are good people. No, they're clear. It's just you have to take reality for what it is. Sadly.
Yeah, yeah. So just one last point on this, and people please like and subscribe, and then we're going to talk about Norman Finkelstein. Is that this video, this debate that they had, was kind of supposed to be about reparations, I think, and if they should be made to Afghanistan. And Phyllis Bennis is like, yeah, of course, some reparations should be made and money should be paid. And Wilkerson is like, yeah, sure, but then you have to give reparations to the Iraqis, to the Yemenis, to Somalians, and then Phyllis Bennis is like, yeah, sure. And he's like, oh, okay, so now you're going to see when the tax people show up at your door, yeah, all you liberals and stuff, when the tax man shows up, yeah, you still want to give your money. And then Phyllis Bennis is just like, 51 cents of all taxes or 57 cents are going to the military, so you could use that money. So, I mean, they kind of cut off the interview there. I'm not sure what was going to be Wilkerson's like next like point after.
I feel the interview got somewhat personal. They're gonna come after my money, my tax. They're like, fuck
Yeah,
that.
no,
I'm
exactly.
not.
I mean, so they stopped it. I hope they pick it up again and this time have a proper debate. I mean, yeah, it was an impromptu, just random debate that emerged out of nowhere. It was interesting to see.
Yeah, fair enough.
But
Fair
yeah,
enough.
so then Norman
But
Finkelstein.
yeah, I didn't know he can't even get a job as a. I read in your notes that you
Yeah,
said he can't even get a job as a volunteer, or that's
yeah,
crazy. He's like one of the most like he must be one of the most cited scholars out there, and
yeah.
fucking hell, that's crazy.
So I'll put a link to these interviews below. I've talked about this. It was done, Reality Asserts Itself, with Paul J. when he worked at the Real News. These are from 2015. It's like an 8-part Norman Finkelstein interview. And so, I mean, Norman Finkelstein had a few issues academically, right? One was with his first book that he got, kicked out of the university that he really liked. Then he goes and
No,
teaches.
no, he didn't get kicked out. He didn't get the 10 share
I believe
because,
that's the second university. I
oh,
believe then
really?
he goes. I believe this part. Someone please clarify. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm right. But then yeah. Then once he goes to DePaul University in Chicago, that's where they deny him tenure. And I think this was based on his second book. So the Holocaust industry, where it talks about Holocaust survivors being, I believe, ripped off. And all that. That's kind of his arguments, and they're being used by others to make money. I believe I haven't read that book, but yeah. After that one, so then he says, after this, I mean, because he had a moment of fame before that. While he was at DePaul, that's when he was traveling all around the world and everything. But then this book, and apparently during the Israel-Lebanon war, he says we are all Hezbollah, and people are like, why didn't you say we're all Lebanon? And he says because Hezbollah were the ones fighting back the Israelis, so that's why that talk at a rally he said I'm Hezbollah. So after this and the tenure thing, he's out of university. So after this, he says the only job he managed to get was teaching in Turkey once a week per semester, I believe, or per month. So he would fly from New York there. He said none of the schools, of course, and the East Coast. He says, I stopped getting even invitations for talks and all this. And then he says, I couldn't get a job at a post office or anything. And Paul J is like, okay, come on, you're a bit exaggerating and all that. He's like, I applied for volunteer teaching to students, to like not university students, to students in Chicago, and even got rejected at that. The main point that he starts making is that like, but hey, I understand. Not only am I trouble for like the university if you get me the amount of backlash that you get, which I think is true. No one wants that kind of shit at work. Unfortunately, most people. But then he's like in
Like the point
academia.
of university was to want that kind of shit. This sense to be accepted in academia. That was the whole fucking point. Like, yeah, of course you don't want somebody like that in, in Disney Corporation board of directors. That makes sense. But in university, that's real. Like when I hate that term, but when people talk about culture and all that shit, this is real
Yeah.
cancel culture where they cut off your livelihood and
Yeah, no,
that.
exactly. But, and then he goes on to add that, yeah, he doesn't have anything to offer like other people in academia. Like, he can't write them a book review or something like that. So he can't, not only is he trouble, he can't do anybody any favors. So he's been completely like ostracized from academia. But it's
And yeah,
surprising, but not surprising.
it's yeah, in a way. And I guess he's not a, I know quite a few people who, when they get ostracized from a certain community, let's say from liberals, they go full on conservative and they throw themselves and like they ignore the problems with that side. But he's not that kind of person. He does point out for example, misogyny in the Islamic world, or the problems with LGBT. So that's the thing. He doesn't have any, because he's basically criticizing everybody equally in a right manner. So he's not welcomed anywhere, really. That's really fucked up.
Yeah,
But
it's
it's
funny you
yeah,
say
it's
that. He
not.
exactly says that. He says like a lot of these
Yeah.
people in these departments are more leftist and more progressive than I am. But of course, I mean, being labeled a Holocaust denier is kind of the end of it.
That's yeah.
He's like when he's talking about the Chicago like kids, he's like, I
Yeah,
understand. They run back home to their parents like, mommy, look, my professor is famous, like showing on Google, and then the first thing that shows up is like, Holocaust denier Norman Finkelstein. Like he's like, I understand. No administrator, no university want that, which is,
yeah,
not a good thing, but that's how the work world is, unfortunately. No, yeah. No one wants
I
extra
would
trouble and shit.
sure, sadly, I would say the only. I mean, I like to point that out just to emphasize that he's a child of a two
Yeah.
Holocaust survivors.
Too.
So one of them, I think, ran away from Auschwitz or
Yeah,
something. Like,
yeah, exactly. I
I
mean,
think
his parents were in multiple concentration camps, and
so. He
both sides
has
of his
never,
family exterminated. Both
and
sides
he,
of it.
yeah, yeah, and he has never ever claimed there has been any exaggeration with the Holocaust event. He has just talked about the Zionism, like it's just a different, like it's a 20-year different, like 10-year different,
Yeah.
like it starts after that what he covers. So it's really unfair.
And his
It's
other
genuinely unfair.
book, I believe, is about people taking advantage of
Yeah, but
Holocaust
yeah,
survivors, even.
sure. But the
Yeah,
people who are taking advantage are, in his view, are
yeah,
Zionists.
yeah,
So in a way, yeah, like that's why they don't like he goes after them where they're really wrong.
yeah.
Like he calls them, I think, basically, yeah, they use Holocaust tragedy as a way to get money off of
Yeah,
Germany
yeah.
and land and all that.
No, exactly, exactly, exactly. But yeah, I mean, people need to go watch this
Yeah.
eight-part like interviews
Yeah,
with Norman
I mean,
Finkelstein.
I'm gonna definitely try to go online and buy all of his books, and uh, I don't know. He should start a Substack or something, I
Nah,
guess.
I don't think he shows up on the Gray Zone every now and then. But
Sure.
I
No,
mean,
no,
just
I just
talk, yeah.
uh, yeah. I mean,
But
I
he
don't know what
rarely comments about anything else except that, like, he
Palestinian.
really, yeah, he really keeps his like comments to the area where he's a scholar.
Because he's an academic. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the thing. So focused on one issue. Yeah. Anyways, that's a very sad update.
yeah. I mean, with the volunteer thing was just shock, but
But
super
if you
awesome.
take anything away from this progressive update episode, just you buy everything Finkelstein.
Yeah, by everything, Norman Finkelstein. But yeah, I think that's it. Anything else you want to talk about before we wrap up this episode?
No, yeah, there was an interesting video on Novara Media, which I didn't agree with and I didn't like. But they apparently Joe Rogan made a comment about vaccination. I watched the video. Joe Rogan has this guy on, and he says that I'm not gonna inject my kids with vaccines because there is a 1 in a million chance. I'm not gonna inject them. And Joe Rogan is like, oh yeah, that's not a controversial thing to say. That shouldn't be a controversial thing to say. And he says that if you're a vulnerable person, you should get vaccinated. But if you're not a vulnerable person, I don't know. That's what he says. Novara Media criticizes him, I think rightly to a point, rightly that you don't get the vaccine done for yourself, just for yourself. You get it done so you don't spread, so you're not contagious.
That's one
Which,
reason.
by the way,
Sorry, can we just? But don't make your second point before I say something about the vaccine. Then we'll get to the second point.
so I think I agree to that extent. I agree with them and not Joe Rogan. Go ahead. So
Yeah, no,
yeah, and
his argument, yeah, and he also says like not only like kids, but he also says younger people who are like healthy, you don't need it. And then he's like, if you're 21 or
exactly.
something like that, you're healthy and everything. So he goes into like a lot extra bullshit, and he has this thing with like COVID and the vaccine and the face mask that he's developed over the past few months that is really strange and like bullshitty, like the arguments that he made. So I just want to
Yeah,
make
yeah,
clear that
this-
when it comes to the vaccines and stuff, the arguments that he made, like I 100% don't find them to have any validity and be like complete bullshit. But
Look, man, it's yeah. Look. Then that's my problem with Novara Media comes in two folds.
I knew, yeah, that's why I wanted to get my comments in.
So first you have this the main host whose name I forget, but he's great. He's usually awesome. He says you have a 2 million followers. You haven't done your research, mate. You should do your research when you're talking about something. I don't think so. I don't think he has it. I just don't believe in this, sorry, bullshit, like celebrities or people with big platform or a small platform. They don't have any responsibility. We are all talking. This is not, and by the way, this specific individual has made it clear on a number of occasions that he's not an expert and he's talking out of his ass and he's
Yeah.
just talking whatever comes to his mind. So no, you don't have any responsibility to anyone. And whoever is idiot enough to follow any celebrity for on vaccine, like on medical, like take their medical advice from Joe Rogan or Gwyneth Paltrow or any idiot, uh, it's your fault. It's your fault. Like it has no, he
Unfortunately,
just
a bit
expects
harsh on
attention.
kids or so, but yeah,
Kids, I mean, okay, yeah, under
a bit
16,
harsh,
not
but
talking
yeah.
about 16, but yeah, anyone above 16, make your own fucking decision. All right? Yeah, there are a lot of opinions out there. People disagree. You don't have any responsibility to anyone. It is you have a social this bullshit. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't. That's one thing.
No, I
Then
agree
they
with
had
that. I agree with that.
yeah, then they had another contributor on whom I'm not a big fan of, but she's usually okay. Dahlia, I believe her name
Oh,
is, and
not
she's
Ash. So it's a different. It's
no,
not Ash.
no, Dahlia is a different contributor.
I haven't seen
Uh,
her. Okay.
they're all, by the way, great, but we discuss points of disagreement because I think that's where there is room for growth for
Yeah, yeah,
everyone.
100%.
She says that, yeah, I understand if you come from a certain community, let's say Native Americans or Black community that has traditionally been experimented on for, we know famously that under the guise of vaccines, Black people were injected with different kinds of disease or placebos, and a lot of different shitty things has happened in America's past and other countries past with medical experimentation, vaccination, especially on minorities. But she says, yeah, I understand if you come from certain background, you feel that way, we should justify that. But uh, like other people, like Joe Rogan, I don't think like again, like a lot of people, like when I read about stuff that has happened in America's past, and I think maybe my government here might be able to do that to me or something. This idea that I just find that somewhat in a weird way. not racist, but tokenist. That okay, if you're black, then you're allowed to be suspicious of vaccinations.
Mm.
But if you're white, well, come on, man, you're white. Well, yeah, this is ridiculous. Like this is tokenism, in my view. Is in the worst kind because it comes in the guise of sort of niceness and equality and bullshit, but it's in reality tokenism. So I really didn't like that take. But yeah, I definitely think if you should get vaccinated, not just for yourself, for the community. I don't know if you'll work if you're, let's say, one of those day hackers that only lives in his house, has a gym in his house, works out there, and lives in the middle of nowhere and goes hunts clean food and never meets anybody. Maybe they don't need vaccine in that case,
Yeah.
as Joe Rogan puts it. Maybe in that specific scenario, but most of us come into contact with other people, even children and all that, and just because society can get on with it, I think everybody should follow medical advice, the best medical advice available,
Yeah.
and
No.
and and the most vaccines seem to be safe. And I think, yeah, it's just the way. I mean, I don't look at Joe Rogan and if you do look at Joe Rogan for medical advice and you want to judge him on that, I think you're being ridiculous,
Yeah. No.
frankly.
No. That's very. Yeah. It's unfortunate. I mean, he has a big. He has such a big following. So yeah, good things that he says, they go far. He was pro Bernie for a while. That was great. But then also the bad, stupid stuff that he says. It's so funny. He tries to get into that conversation with Bill Burr about masks, and Bill Burr just tells them to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, yeah.
Have you seen
Bill
it?
Burr is great. Yeah, yeah. Bill Burr is awesome. Like, yeah,
Because
look,
it was so good. He was
that's
just like, shut
simple.
the fuck up.
But
But the
Bill
other
Burr
thing,
doesn't go on a whole rampage about man, you have a
yeah,
responsibility. Why would you say that in a public for? Oh,
yeah.
come on, fuck off. Like with the sanctuary.
And
I
everything
hate.
that he says, Joe Rogan is always kind of based on his own like specific context. Like even when it comes to meat and eating and stuff, like he'll admit that maybe it's like it's cruel, like the animal, like animal farming, but then he'll be like, you should go hunting and blah blah, like things that only work out in his like insanely
It,
good for him. Congrats that you've made it like that. Of course,
I
congrats.
don't
But
know.
insanely privileged, like life and
Mm,
world that he has.
I don't think
Fine, nothing
necessarily.
wrong with that.
No, 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 not necessarily that though. I think people are programmed into living a more mechanicalized life, and he's been enough creative thing. Because to be honest, when I go to shops and stuff, genuinely, a lot of vegetables are cheaper than meat. You don't have to eat meat every day. For
Yeah.
example, you are vegan, you don't eat meat at all. But my point is that a lot of people don't make choices because they're like less privileged or they don't have enough money. It's just because they've been taught wrong or it's become
Yeah, no, no,
habit.
I know.
Uh,
Maybe no. I just
you
meant
know,
Joe Rogan himself. Like, sometimes when he has to like justify things, he gets into like kind of specific examples that only kind of work out in his situation
fair
and
enough.
world. But I just want to say one thing about vaccines that he says that's just really stupid. Sorry, about COVID in general. He's on this thing about, exercising and being healthy and stuff, which is true. And the data shows this also. If you're in better health and better shape, this will mean that if you get COVID, you'll most likely not get the worst kind of COVID. There's a good chance. But he keeps on pushing this narrative of exercise and stuff. And it's just so hilarious to me because he's
No,
so into the UFC, right? He's so into the
mm,
UFC. And the UFC is filled with 500 people who fall exactly into this category that he thinks, they probably don't even need to get vaccinated because they are so healthy. But the funny thing is, like, a little bit of nuance in his exercise thing is that, of course, exercising long term if you're healthy, but if you start exercising, you're not going to combat COVID like that. And also, when you exercise a lot, you actually make your body weaker at that time until rebuild. So there's a chance. So I can think of 5 UFC fighters, I don't know all 500, 5 really big famous ones who got COVID and had bad COVID. Like their fights had to be postponed for months because they got long-term COVID and bad COVID. So like if I ever was on his show, I would like point to this sports one that I would really get into and be like, yo, you got to check your health arguments though, because it
uh,
is true,
to
but you're giving only one side of it.
Sure. But interestingly, though, I would say on the positive side of Navarro media, they had an interview, I think, a week or so ago. I'll do it more deep. I like to actually have a discussion with the writer of the book. But apparently, there is a book that looks in depth at the rate of people who've died across the world from COVID, and it shows that, for example, yes, there is a difference between Germany and US, right? But that difference. Uh, so there's a difference between Germany and US, let's say, and there is a difference between Japan and New Zealand, and that difference is the same actually. Well, while like there seems to be a tiny variations in, it seems that geographical locations basically or long-term like estate plannings have had more to do because you have, for example, a country like Peru, which has one of the most extensive lockdowns there has ever been. And then you had a country like Brazil, which was one of the most relaxed one. And then the death rates per capita are somewhat similar, right? So it seems that long-term exercise, good food, clean air, all of that is far more important probably than masks. But as you say, we can't get all fit in the 6 months that COVID is gonna, take over the planet. That's the issue right now. So we have to wear double masks, even though they may be 10% effective or whatever. But just it's whatever. It's 10%.
Yeah, and even that has its limits. I guess
Sure.
exercising like these fighters that like other people know him like Leon and Edwards,
To be
Kamzat, this
fair,
big guy who came. I
from
mean, these guys got COVID for a long time and were
from
like pretty unhealthy for a long time. Cody
from
Garbrandt, if anybody watches UFC.
yeah, from what I understand, most sports, especially contact sports, are actually detrimental to your long-term health because they cause sudden pressures on your joints and all that.
Oh
Like
yeah, in that sense, I mean you're screwed.
so, yeah, or your heart. Like I mean, American football and boxing are famous for everybody getting Parkinson's at age 50 or something. So like if you're swimming every day and taking long, nice walks in the countryside, that's a whole different.
Yeah.
You might not have a six pack, but you might be much better, well prepared for COVID. You
Yeah.
know. But
No,
who
I mean
knows? But
yeah. I mean sports for sure. Whenever you go to the professional level and stuff, I mean it's
it's crazy. They
detrimental
are
to your
all
health after a while, of course. I mean, it's totally different. But even before that, but yeah, but
so
yeah,
yeah.
Joe Rogan
That
though
was my.
interesting. Like his swing right now has been to the right the past 6 months or so.
I think he's not swinging. I think he's
No,
just a
he's
normal
always
person.
swinging. I swear. Okay,
He's
sure. I
not
guess
swinging.
normal people are always swinging.
Well, I think the normal people have a certain line that doesn't fit into our thing, so it feels like a swing. It cuts through, you know, a thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, because I can see him being a bit of a libertarian. I myself, to be honest, I was like I said, to be honest, very in the very beginning to my family that I'm not going to get the vaccine for the first year. But now, to be honest, a year has passed, so I'm completely
Uh,
fine with it because you don't know. You're a
yeah.
bit. I'm a bit suspicious of
That's
big
different, exact. But
pharma,
that's
big
different.
government,
But your argument has changed now over the time. Like, okay, before
and
that was
what
that, and now you could still be suspicious, let's say, for other
of
reasons.
them.
But exactly, you can't say
Yeah,
the
but I've
exact
seen the
argument
evidence.
from a year ago. Yeah, no, fair
Yeah,
enough.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah. So no, I
fair.
understand some of
Yeah,
his points. It's just that maybe he takes
yeah.
longer for some.
But even the mask, though, I mean, that's the vaccine.
But,
But the
but
mask,
it's
why he's so against the mask, he's like, remove
uh,
that stupid thing off your face. He's watching a video of an old boxing coach, and he has his mask kind of here. And he's like, remove that stupid mask? Why are you wearing that stupid mask? I was like, jeez.
oh really?
Yeah.
Wow, I didn't.
People are
Okay,
not watching his stuff. I think if
all
he
right.
was on YouTube right now, we would know more. But he's like saying shit on Spotify. Nobody sees it. One person gets
I,
the clip, puts it on YouTube.
fair enough, fair enough. No,
Yeah,
I would say though, my point was that I hate the sanctimony. I hate
yeah,
that, because you're an actor or because no,
mm,
because he's an actor and a comedian and a talk shows, you
mm.
should not expect him to. He's not
Or
head of CDC,
yeah, Or
It
let's
just
say, sure, his responsibility could be to say what he believes to be the truth. So at least not lie to your audience. And
yeah,
if
yeah,
that's what he believes, I mean, it's
whatever.
dumb,
To be
it's
honest,
stupid,
even
but
again, I think you're too harsh,
no,
but
no, no.
yeah,
I'm saying you can say it's
oh, it
dumb,
would,
it's stupid,
yeah,
sure, but yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, exactly. That's my. I mean, to be fair, even you can say like in a show, even honesty is, in my view, like it's up to the post. Like I
sure.
don't think
Even that,
uh,
if
uh,
you want to be a, if
it's
you
a
want to be a lying
productive.
piece of shit,
Yeah,
yeah,
because if you want to start, censoring, if you want to start,
yeah. No, no, you're
look,
right.
by the way, Novara Media wasn't suggesting we should cancel anyone. They were just criticizing. So I don't want to exaggerate. But if you want to start criticizing people for, expressing views in big, like not the view, but expressing views, I mean, that's a slippery slope and an idiotic thing in my view. Because, yeah, they can have many different intentions.
No, definitely. And we need to keep Joe Rogan around because sooner or later he'll redeem himself, when like an extremely stupid right wing person comes on the show, they think,
I
let me
can't wait.
let me try to
Yeah,
push the envelope and then
I can't wait for him to destroy Ben Shapiro like he did with Dave Rubin.
yeah.
Just
He
in
needs
a
to snap.
10-minute video, destroyed his whole career as an intellectual.
Seriously, right?
I like to think so, but
Uh,
apparently Dave Rubin is still going on, so
oh, Dave
maybe not.
Rubin, yeah, but what about the other guy? Or he didn't destroy the other guy? The
Which one?
Milo guy?
No, no,
Or
he got
that guy
destroyed
destroyed
by himself.
himself? Oh.
Yeah, yeah, he said something about he it turned out he was paying journalists to do something. I forget what, and he turned out he made a comment justifying like having sex with 12-year-olds or something. So yeah, he did that
Yeah.
himself. Yeah.
Jesus Christ. But
Now,
okay, all right.
he's a Christian now.
Yeah, I know, I heard. I mean, let's not even talk about that. Okay. People, please like and subscribe and also share your comments, your thoughts in the comment section below. Really appreciate all the time. We get back to them most of the time and even talk about them in our next video. So yeah, please share your thoughts. Tell us where we're wrong, where you disagree. But yeah, anything else, Sam?
No, and yeah, get us to 1,000 so we can
Yeah,
do polls.
get
That's
us
that's my
to a
aim in
million.
life.
Just running polls and everything and anything.
Yeah. Any guys, what do you think of this black shirt or white shirt? Which?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in our next video. Thank you.